Good morning, everyone. My name's Paula McGrath, and I'm Deputy Chief Executive at Retina UK. I'm really delighted to have the opportunity to introduce this session, Stronger Together, Working in Partnership to Achieve Our Aims. At Retina UK, we believe collaborative working is critical to success. In fact, collaboration is one of the values that we live by, as we know it can have such a huge impact for our community. We regularly involve other organisations, large and small, in our research, information and support, and awareness-raising activities, because we know there are times when we're simply stronger by working together with others. In this session, we're going to share some of the ways that we do this. We've got 3 presenters, and we will take questions at the end. So first are some examples of our collaboration in research. We're absolutely thrilled that Retina UK and the Macular Society are joint funding 3 PhD studentships as a result of our recent joint grant call. This is only possible thanks to collaborative funding and the power that this has. We had intended to make just one award, but the medical advisory boards of both charities and the trustee boards were so impressed by what they saw that they agreed to fund all 3. So we will be sharing the cost of these projects, which will investigate different aspects of inherited sight loss. You can support this work using the donation envelope in your delegate bag or the donation link online. But of course, any potential treatments must make a meaningful impact on the day-to-day lives of those living with sight loss. Biotechnology and pharmaceutical companies are actively seeking to understand these day-to-day impacts so that they can make real progress, and that's where we all come in. We're going to hear more about this activity now from Kate Arkle, our Research Development Manager, Kate Downey, UK Head of Patient Advocacy at Janssen, who are one of our sponsors, and Martin Hills, who lives with retinitis pigmentosa. Martin has previously shared his experience with a biotechnology company as part of their steering committee. I should make you aware that pharmaceutical companies are bound by a very tight code of conduct. And this means that Kate Downey will be unable to talk about any clinical trials or products that Janssen may be involved in today. So if you have questions of this nature, please do save them for the research sessions this afternoon. So I'll now hand over to Kate and Martin.
Thank you very, very much, Paula. Kate, if we can start with you, please. So why do pharmaceutical companies need to understand the lived experience of people living with various conditions? How does this help you?
So firstly, just to say, as Paula said, you know, we're bound by this a very kind of strict code of conduct as a pharmaceutical company, and therefore, you know, for me, being here today is such a privilege, and it's such a privilege to work in partnership with patient organisations and also with patients, and that is absolutely critical. You know, we need, as a pharmaceutical company, we really need to understand the lived experience of the people who are affected by the conditions in the areas that we work. So, you know, I guess, you know, we're all human and everybody has a unique story. And so therefore, it's really, really important that we kind of engage directly, and we can learn so much from talking to patients and caregivers and their family members as well. So the kind of things where that's important for us is you know, by listening and understanding different perspectives and the different needs of individuals, we can actually, it guides our decision making, and it guides decisions that we make in the kind of early research area through clinical trials, and then also, you know, when somebody has a diagnosis with a condition, it actually helps understanding their experience and what they're going through. Actually helps us to provide support, you know, develop support programs and education and things. So there are so many ways this helps.
And what are the different ways that you gather experiences?
So there are lots of different ways that we do this. I mentioned, you know, we work with patient organisations such as yourselves at Retina UK, and that's really, really valuable. And we have advisory boards where which are kind of focus groups as well. We do market research, which could be big surveys, or it could be one-to-one interviews with individuals. But like I said, we work with patient groups because you can provide, I guess, a perspective of the whole patient community. And then we also work, as I said, directly with individuals who are affected. And that is absolutely critical.
Do you have criteria for deciding who takes part, or is it just anybody affected by the condition?
Yeah, we absolutely do. And well, we do in terms of it's so important that we have a diverse representation in the work that we do. So yeah, that's why we would have criteria. Now, I can't talk about clinical trials, as Paula says, and obviously they have their own criteria written into protocols. Yeah. But in terms of this sort of insights gathering that we do, I guess diversity from our perspective is, it's really important that we understand from a diverse range of people affected. So that, as I said, could be the people who are directly affected. It could be the patient, it could be the family member, could be a caregiver. But also, we also need to engage with carriers of genetic mutations, if that's a factor in the area where we're working. We also need to understand, thinking specifically about inherited sight loss, we need to understand what it's like living with, for people at different stages of vision impairment as well. So it's getting that diversity there. But also, as you'd imagine, we also need to understand the impact that a particular condition has. People of different ages, different backgrounds, people who have different levels of access to healthcare. There are so many different factors.
So potentially anybody who's with us today could be a huge help to you. And you've mentioned family members as well, so they're as important.
Absolutely. We really recognise the importance of talking to parents, talking to other family members. In the area of inherited sight loss, it's really critical, particularly when we're looking at developing support programs, because we don't just want to support the individual who's affected, we want to support their support network as well. So that's really important, and involving parents in the work that we do in terms of gathering insights and understanding the broader challenges. As you can imagine, it's really important for things like family planning, genetic counselling, and thinking about the future generational impact of some conditions.
Yeah, which we know is something that our community thinks about a lot. Are there any limitations? So, for example, if somebody undertakes this sort of activity with one company, does that prevent them from doing it with somebody else? Or is there anything else that people should consider?
It's a really good question. I think so. I guess we at Janssen, we're aware that that people may be approached by other companies. There might be other opportunities, and we really encourage that. Okay. I think everybody just has to be cognizant of conflict, potential conflict of interest. But the key really is communication, transparency, and that's really entrenched in the code of practice that we adhere to, the ABPI code of practice as well.
How do you ensure, obviously many of our community are living with sight loss, how do you as a company ensure accessibility and inclusivity for these activities?
Do you know what, this is just one of the really kind of important things about working with yourselves and other patient organisations, because you can really help us with that. And in terms of inherited sight loss, absolutely, there are measures that we take to ensure that anybody can get involved and engage with us. So we have online access options. We always make sure that we accommodate caregivers, guide dogs if required. We always have that option of accessible formats for any materials that we develop, electronic or large print. I think the key is really that we work in partnership with yourselves and other organisations, because you can inform and help us along that journey.
It's just really great that you're open to being supported in that way, so we can help you with that. What about expenses? If people do travel to something, do you pay expenses? Do you reimburse in any way?
Absolutely. You know, it's really we really value the contribution that people are making, and we value that you might be giving your time up to do something that you know that's yes, it's an important thing to do, but actually you should still be reimbursed for that. And so yeah, we pay fees for people's time. So if somebody was to engage in, say, a focus group, and it was a half day, so like 3 hour focus group, we'd pay an hourly rate to that person for their involvement on the day, but we might also be asking you to do some pre-work, in which case we would also pay a fee for any pre-work that was done. So absolutely. And then in terms of travel costs as well, we reimburse travel costs, because we don't think that there should be any financial burden on somebody for wanting to be involved and do good in this way.
And just finally, what would you, just quickly, because I'm conscious of time, what would you say to somebody who's a bit hesitant of taking part, if they're perhaps a bit nervous about doing it? What would you say to encourage them?
Please don't be. I guess, you know, I think I mentioned about, you know, everybody's experience, lived experience, and everyone's story is unique, and that's what we want to hear. You know, so the challenges that you faced or are facing, that's exactly what we want to hear. You know, even if you feel you don't have a lot to say, your contribution, it really matters, and you could be helping, you know, by talking to us, by providing insights. You could be helping in terms of the development of our research program. You could be helping inform the shape of our materials that we produce as part of the support program. There are so many reasons, you know, to do so. But really just to understand that we create a very supportive environment, so that if you come along to a meeting or you join virtually, you know, you're listened to, what you say is valued, and it's really, really respected and appreciated.
Thank you very much, Kate. Martin, thank you for waiting so patiently for me to come to you. Just firstly, quickly, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey with RP?
Oh, right. Okay. Yes, I can. My first experience with RP actually was my dad, who also had RP. And when my sister and I were old enough, we used to go for the occasional drink with my dad down the pub. And it was pretty rural. And when we came out of the pub to go home, we'd walk along a very dark country lane. And I couldn't believe that my dad couldn't walk in a straight line. And I did wonder whether he could take his drink or not, but actually that was the first signs I didn't appreciate at the time, was RP, where he would veer off course. And my sister and I had great fun just making sure he didn't quite go into the verge. So, you know, we were careful, but it was fun. Of course, we were completely wrong about our assumptions. So that was my first experience. Myself, my experience started really in my late 20s, when I played quite a bit of sport and I couldn't actually pick up the flight of a shuttlecock on occasions. And that was very frustrating. So that was my first experience, but my central vision wasn't too bad, so I compensated. So I worked as a chartered civil engineer, both in the UK and abroad. And when I came back to this country, when I was in my late 40s, I just had a standard eye test for reading particularly. And of course, they well and truly picked up my RP by the optometrist. And it was such a classic case. They asked if a trainee could come and look at my retinas. So I guess I'm classic in that sense. So, okay, then I got referred to the consultant ophthalmologist, and I was officially diagnosed in my late 40s, and I had to immediately stop driving, and it was immediate, I can assure you. So that meant major adjustments, both for myself and my wife, just getting me to work, and all other things as well. Fortunately, with my particular condition, my eyesight's a slow deterioration, which is an awful lot better than some people. And I've still got reasonable central vision now. and I continued to have a successful and fulfilling career until I retired. So after retirement, I thought, well, I'm going to, like my dad did, I'll join Retina UK. And in 2014, I joined the email helpline team. And then from 2017 onwards, I've run that particular section of the helpline. I was certified partially sighted in 2002 and severely sight impaired in 2017. I am a symbol cane user. That was a bit of a challenge. I was reluctant, but I had to do it in the end. And as I said, my father's got RP. Unfortunately, one of my children now has been diagnosed with RP. And actually, as a wider family now, we've got 4 generations diagnosed with the condition. So that's, well, we're well known in Moorfields for that historical reason. I did genetic counselling and testing in 2014 at my regional Bristol centre. I was diagnosed autosomal dominant. That was confirmed. Sadly, the results from a Manchester testing lab said I was impure. I had an impure sample. Well, I've been called a lot of things in my life, but impure isn't actually one of them. In the end, I was able to get another blood sample from my GP that was sent off through to Manchester. Came back, they tested for 176 genes at the time. Unfortunately, our mutant gene causing my type of RP and my family's type couldn't be identified and still is not identified. So other things we've done very quickly, several members, including myself, of my wider family took part in the 100,000 Genome Project, and I've also been a participant in the UK Inherited Retinal Dystrophy Consortium, the RP Genome Project sponsored by Retina UK. So that's it, that's me.
So you've already done lots and lots, and you're certainly a huge value to us at Retina UK, but can you outline for us exactly how you were involved in an industry-related activity?
Yeah, I was a member of the advisory committee for a biotech company for nearly 3 years. This company is involved in the research and development of potential RNA therapies aimed at treating, obviously, various forms of inherited retinal dystrophy. The committee members were from not only the UK, but other European countries, the States and Canada, and they were both RP patients, but also, as we've just talked about before, family members too, which I think is important. So that's how I joined, really.
And how did you hear about that opportunity?
Well, Kate, it was through you. And obviously you have key contacts with various pharmaceutical and biotech companies. And I understand that part of the link was the fact that I had autosomal dominant RP, and that particular company was interested in representations for that particular diagnosis.
Yeah, so it was really helpful for us to know that your RP was autosomal dominant, and that's why it can be helpful for us at Retina UK to have that extra information about people's diagnosis, so that we can support recruitment for these sorts of activities. What made you decide to go for it, Martin? What was your motivation?
What a good question. Well, after I was approached, I checked their website out to see how they were putting patients first, as a lot of websites might claim. That obviously is a sentiment I'm going to completely support, and it was actually reinforced in my initial interview to make sure that my membership was mutually beneficial. Having RP myself and in my role with the helpline, I felt I could contribute reflecting attitudes of sufferers not only in the UK but often globally as well, because we do get a lot of approaches globally as well. I was motivated to see whether their warm, patient-first words were converted into actual actions. Obviously, that's important. And because my family's defective gene has yet to be identified, I think any part I can play that the patients are well understood throughout all the processes leading to potential treatments, that gives me additional motivation too.
And how did you help the company? What did you talk about in your meetings? What did they want your help with?
What did they want my help with? Well, I think the best thing I can start with is just to say what the objectives of the committee were, and that was to bring together a cross-section of persons with experience in our IRDs and to consult and inform various topics, including things like clinical trials, patient outreaches, patient-facing material communications, ensuring the company is meeting those needs of patients and all the ones they're trying to serve. And we really did have a wide variety of topics. I'll just touch on a few. Building trust with the community was one. Obviously, the research trial process is critical. Disease awareness, we were still meeting online, obviously, through COVID-19s and the impacts of all those sorts of things. The importance of communication and language in particular is vital. Obviously, things like genetic testing, diagnosis, and outcome measures. Things like feeding back on the suitability of questionnaires, which has already been touched on, I think. Wearing digital technologies to monitor IRDs at home, perhaps, that was quite interesting. Just the process of RNA science, it's just a bit beyond me, but I'm interested. The referral process and travel experiences. And the other important one I thought was about regulatory pathways in drug development, and particularly the role of patient groups to influence those regulatory bodies. I think that's very important.
Yeah, that is important, and that's something that we're very conscious of at Retina UK now. Did it meet your expectations, Martin? What did you get out of it?
I got quite a bit out of it, actually. I think the things that I particularly liked was the interaction from a wide variety of people, including family members from different countries. That was interesting to see, compare and contrast what we're like in this country. I was inspired by them. I think they were really interesting people, and they were prepared to give their views as it is, not beating about the bush. There was a tremendous amount of openness there, and were my expectations met? I'd say partially, not completely, because it takes some time for the evidence to come through. But the one thing that I did think was very important was the CEO attended nearly all the meetings, which I thought showed signs of commitment.
Yeah, that's really good. And just finally, Martin, and quickly, what would you say to somebody out there now who's listening to you and is thinking or would consider doing something like this but isn't too sure?
Finally and quickly, Kate, definitely worth a go if you're interested and have the chance to influence.
Okay, thank you both very much. Kate, did you have anything to add just very quickly?
Just listening to Martin there, I just thought you brought to life so well what it's actually like, to kind of participate in this type of activity with a pharmaceutical company, and actually you talked about kind of so many topics that they were interested in, which I think kind of just really demonstrates that range of interest. It's not just about what can we do in terms of the drug or the whatever. It's actually there's a lot more around it. I think that pharmaceutical companies really want to learn about and understand.
Thank you both so much. I know you're going to stay for the Q&A panel at the end of the session, but I'm handing back to Paula now.
Thank you.